All right. Got a little bit of a different mission brief this week. I want to talk to the women. I know we've got some women listeners. That's awesome. Some of them are probably wives of MA. Some of them maybe not. Maybe I don't know how you've heard of us or found our podcast, but this podcast is for you. So I've been doing relationship coaching for several years now. And in that time, I've seen a couple hundred clients, a couple thousand hours, not like tremendously experienced, but a good bit. And there's some themes when you do this that you just keep seeing come up over and over. And sometimes it's just the same problems over and over in a lot of relationships. And I also hear a lot of men talking about their marriages, their relationships. So between Men's Alliance and my relationship coaching, I've put together 3 things for women that your husband wants you to know. So guys, enjoy this. I'm sure you will agree with me on these 3. And women, take note. I can promise you, absolutely guarantee you, wives, if you will implement these 3 simple things in your marriage, it is going to drastically improve. If your marriage is currently an 8, this will get it to a 10. If your marriage is a 3, this will get it to a 7, right? This is gonna help a lot. This is the big blocks. These are the big foundational blocks. And then if these are right, all you'll need is just some minor, help with communication and stuff to really refine it. But these are the 3 big ones that I just think women need to hear from a man speaking on behalf of men and husbands everywhere. This is what we want you to know. So here's number 1. Tell us exactly what you want. Tell us exactly what you want. Think about that. Let that sink in. It's so simple. Tell us what you need. Tell us what you want. Be crystal clear. Be straightforward. Be explicit. Tell us what you want. We have no idea what you're thinking. We don't know what you're wanting, hoping, hinting, suggesting, or insinuating. The thing that you think is so obvious, there's no way you would need to say this out loud to your husband. Say it out loud to your husband. He has no idea. A couple that I talked with, the guy worked a second shift job. He always came home from work every evening at like 11 p.m. And the wife had always, every day, just stayed awake long enough to see him come in, and then she was exhausted. So it was like every day he came in from work and she said goodnight and went to bed. And his routine was he got a beer and watched like Sports Center or a ball game on the news. And they're sitting there both in the room with me talking, and he is complaining to me about her nagging. And she just looked at him sideways when he said nagging, and she was like, I don't ever nag you. What on earth are you talking about? I am not a nag. And he was like, yeah, you do quite a bit. And so I asked him, I said, give me an example. Like, what was the last time she nagged you? What did that look like? What did she say? He goes, well, she, okay, here's an example. I come home from work. I'm watching some sports, having a beer, kind of just trying to unwind. And she's texting me like, when are you coming to bed? How much later are you going to stay up? When are you going to turn the TV off and come to bed? And he's like, geez, I'm just trying to relax. And her jaw just hit the ground. She was like, are you kidding? I wasn't nagging you. I was wanting you to come upstairs because I was wanting to have sex. And man, you should have seen this guy. I was just looked at him. I was like, did you have any idea that that's what she was wanting? with those texts. He was like, what? No, I would have been up the stairs in 2 steps. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, if you wanted him to come upstairs and have sex, why didn't you say that? And she just thought about it. She was like, I have no idea. I don't know. I just was hinting and being playful and trying to get him upstairs. I'm like, well, how'd that work out for you? Years of frustration. That's how that worked out for her. And years of frustration and missed opportunities for him. Just say what you want. Don't hint. Don't suggest. Don't insinuate. Don't assume. Women, ask for what you want. If you want your husband to do something, just ask. We, all men, we want to please our wives. We just, honest to goodness, don't know how to do it. Now, we know that we've done it sometimes in our past, but honestly, those were kind of dumb luck, and we don't know how we got there or if we could replicate it again. We've tried to replicate our successes, and they didn't work, and that left us scratching our head. Like, we don't know how we hit the target sometimes. So please just give us the answers to the test. Give us your answers. Tell us what to do. Write us a checklist. Say, do this for me. We'll do that for you. We want to please you. We have no idea how. And it's because you think we know and you're hinting. Don't do it. Just tell us exactly what you need. Don't say, when are you coming upstairs and turning off the TV? Say, come upstairs, let's have sex. Okay, just be direct and straightforward. We want to please you. We have no idea how. We need you to just be clear with us. If we're to do something, tell us. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, fill our tank. Fill our love tank. We're running on fumes, okay? Your husband is running on fumes. Do not be miserly with your love. Do not keep your husband on sexual life support. Give yourself to your husband physically. Give your body to your husband with reckless abandon. Listen, if you think he doesn't deserve it, you're right. He doesn't. And he never will. And that's not what marriage is about. It's not about deciding whether or not someone deserves your love. Honestly, if that's the way you're viewing your marriage, that view is poisoning your marriage. You should have figured that out before you got married. You should have decided if this guy is worth your love before you said I do. Once you've married him, that decision is over and done. Stop keeping score. He doesn't deserve you. You don't deserve him. You're both wretched sinners, but you're married to each other, and now you ought to be striving to please each other, to satisfy each other. Marriage is not a place for you to keep score and grade him on his worth and dole out what you deem fitting. Marriage is when you give 100% every day, and so does he, right? This podcast, I'm talking to women. We can do a whole nother one on men, but honestly, that's being done pretty much all the time. Men are all the time being told, love your wife as Christ loved the church. Sacrificial love, be devoted to her, give yourself freely to her, work hard for her, provide for her, don't drink too much, take the family to church, and don't look at pornography, and don't expect anything in return. That's what American men are being told all the time. And honestly, it's time that this message gets told to women as well. So this second of my 3 points to women is this. Try to outlove your husband so much. Try to give him so much love, physical love, sexual satisfaction, so that every single day when he leaves the house, when he goes out into the world every single day, he is so full, his love tank is so full, he could not even be tempted by any woman out there because he is so satisfied by you. And if you were to die, he would never be able to find a woman that could please him as well as you. That should be your goal for where you want to set the bar. There is a lot of sexual temptation in this world. You know that, women. We know that. Don't send your husband out the door every day starving for affection, starving for love, running on empty. You are sending him out susceptible to temptation. Yes, we should be strong enough to resist temptation. It goes both ways, but don't set him up for failure. Proverbs 5 talks about this. It's giving advice and wisdom to a young man to avoid a prostitute in the street. And he's saying, don't go that way, man. Don't follow that woman. You should be home with your wife. And in Proverbs chapter 5, it says in verse 19, it says, may her breast satisfy you always. May you be captivated by her love forever. And I think that's amazing because we live in this time where women's rights are so highlighted and extreme and at the forefront of everything. They've got such a megaphone that we're actually hearing the message that women's breasts are designed just to feed babies, and like men are weird for even being attracted to that. These are for feeding children. What's your problem? No, right there in Proverbs, actually, we read that her breasts are there also to satisfy her husband, and keep him captivated and in love with her forever. So women, just don't be, stingy with how you dole out love, keeping score. Here is an important verse for any marriage that honestly, I'm kind of surprised, but not surprised by this. You don't hear this one getting preached on. I think pastors are afraid in a lot of churches to preach to the women. It's easier to beat up on the men and give the women a pass every Sunday, but we can't do that because it takes two to have a good marriage. So I want to read you this extremely unpopular Bible verse in today's culture. And this is 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And I'm reading right now from the NIV. It says, the wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband. Let me read that again. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband. In the same way, the husband does not have authority over his body, but yields it to his wife. Do not deprive each other, except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. Then come together again so that Satan will not tempt you. This is what I'm saying. Women, you've got to come together. You've got to give your body to your husband. You cannot be stingy with that. You are allowing the door to temptation by Satan to be wide open when you're stingy with sex. And I want to read this same passage to you from the Message because I love how it's translated in the Message. It says, the marriage bed must be a place of mutuality, the husband seeking to satisfy his wife and the wife seeking to satisfy her husband. Marriage is not a place to stand up for your rights. You hear that? Marriage is not a place to stand up for your rights. Marriage is a decision to serve the other. It's a decision to serve the other, whether in bed or out. So I just can't highlight this enough, women. It's not about your husband deserving it. It's not about keeping score. It's not about 50-50. It's about 100 and 100. It's about giving everything you've got every day, trying to outlove one another and trying to please each other and trying to satisfy each other and trying to fill each other's tanks. That's point number 2. Point 3, this is my last one. And these are all 3 so important. Number 3, treat your husband like he's a leader, and he will become a leader. we want to call out the best in our kids, right? If you go around calling your kids little nasty thieves and liars, they're going to become horrifically evil, nasty thieves and liars. People become what we call them. And if you want your husband, ladies, to be a leader, treat him like he's a leader. Treat your husband like he's a leader, and he will become a leader. Treat him like he's a great lover, and he'll become a great lover. Treat him like he is a spiritual leader, and that's what he'll become. Treat him not based on what he deserves, but based rather on what you want him to become. Okay, now here's a big part of this. This means the way you treat somebody like a leader is you follow them. You have to be a follower in order to treat your husband like he's a leader. Women, if you will learn to follow and treat your husband like a leader, you will see him grow into a better leader. He will bloom. He will become that leader that you want him to be. You want your husband to be a great leader. And many of you are disappointed and frustrated or even angry that your husband is not a better spiritual leader. Well, as unpopular as it may be to say this, that might be your fault. You might have crushed that in him years ago without even realizing it, without knowing it, but it's not too late. You can fix that. Okay. So treat him based on what you want him to become, not on what he deserves. And here's kind of what that can look like as you think about following him. If he clumsily wants to lead the family in a devotion, then you need to rally the kids to that cause. If he wants to take the family on a weekend trip to do something weird that you think is lame, maybe he wants to go see the world's largest ball of yarn, go do it with him. Follow, get the kids excited, load up the car, be a good follower, and he'll start to become a better leader. If you shoot down his lame devotion or his dumb idea, or you laugh at his poor leadership or choice of where to take the family, if you're a bad follower, then he's going to stop leading. That's just how men are wired. We will try something, but if it's not working, we will stop. We will go sit on the sideline and we will say for the rest of our lives, we tried to lead. It didn't work. They didn't follow. Then you'll be frustrated for the rest of your life as you lead your family spiritually, wondering why your husband isn't. It's because when he tried, you weren't following. So if you want to be married to a spiritual leader, then you have to be a spiritual follower, women. You're probably telling yourself, kind of like just like point number 2, maybe he doesn't deserve you to follow. Again, he doesn't. He doesn't deserve to have you following him, and he doesn't deserve you sexually either. This isn't about deserving anything. Again, none of us deserve each other. We're all broken sinners. You're not following him because he deserves it. You're following him because that's what God calls you to do for your husband. You're not pleasing him sexually because he deserves it. You're pleasing him because that's what the Bible calls you to do for him. So when we look at marriage biblically, and if women will act towards their husbands the way the Bible tells them to, the way Paul writes in Corinthians and Ephesians for them to, your body is not your own. Give it freely to your husband. Submit to your husband. All these things that are super unpopular to say in churches in America now, maybe that's why marriages are so bad in this country, is because we stopped saying what these Bible verses say. That's why we have men looking at porn. We have high divorce rates. Marriages are falling apart and nobody's happy. Maybe we should go back to doing it the way God prescribed in the first place. So, women, he's not going to try to lead a family that doesn't want him at the helm. So restore your husband to the helm. Let me give you these 3 things in summary, tell him exactly what you need. Don't hint or suggest. Life is too short for those games. Ask your husband for exactly what you want from him. And number two, don't be miserly with your love or focused on your rights. A husband who is sexually satisfied will be a man who will storm the gates of hell for you. And three, learn to follow as you encourage your husband to lead. If you are married to a man who is given up on leading, who is sexually starved, and who doesn't do the things that you think are obvious, it's not because he's failed. It's because you've both failed. Marriage takes two, and you can't just blame him for his shortcomings without looking at yourself and examining, what have I done to contribute to this? Well, I could be more clear and tell him exactly what I want, what I need. You know what? I could fill his love tank for him and send him out the door every day on cloud nine. And I could encourage him to lead by myself becoming a better follower. Women, trust me, if you'll do these three things, your marriage will radically improve. I promise you that, as unpopular as they may be, please take them to heart. And I'll just end again with this thought. God had this figured out long, long ago. And the Bible tells us exactly how to do it in Corinthians and Ephesians and Proverbs, how to get marriage right, striving to please each other, not to stand up for our own rights, but to love sacrificially, to submit. Our bodies are not our own. Be clear with what we say to one another. Do everything in love. If you'll stop keeping score in your marriage, and if you will just follow his lead, things will go better.